we're here on Strips Play, a very special occasion, Stu, for you. Your last appearance today against Southend United, 621 games for Morecambe. I think the word legend is bandied about too much, but
I think you're right. It probably is.
Yeah, yeah, and so we won't use it.
Yeah, prefer not to.
But from your point of view, came here in the early 90s, signed a contract in 95, I believe, and out of those obviously 20 years, you've had 18 as a professional. A couple of years at Chester, a couple of years at Shrewsbury, boo, but the rest of them at Christie Park and here at the Globe Arena. You've made the momentous decision that now is the time to hang up the boots after hopefully getting a hat-trick against Southend today.
We got on early enough then.
But what drew you to that decision? Because obviously it's a big call to make, because you're a fit lad, you look exactly the same as you pitched as you did 10-15 years ago. So.
Yeah, it is. I suppose it's a tough call in a way to make. I suppose it'd be even tougher if I was 32, 33, but being 39.
39?
Obviously,
you heard it here first.
Obviously, you can't play forever at the end of the day, and maybe I might have squeezed another year out of it. But with everything else I've got going on behind the scenes with the youth and obviously still doing the reserves, time constraints, I get a little bit pressurised nowadays. And probably what pushed me over the edge this season more than any other season is me not playing as an active a role as probably what I'm used to. Was that disappointing for you? I think it was, yeah.
Because you think you can still do a job.
Well, yeah.
I know you came into the team in January, didn't you? And you did do a job, so therefore that sort of proved it to yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've always been of the volition that if I'm fit, then I think I'm good enough to be playing. That's why I kept playing till I was 39. If I didn't think I was good enough to play, or didn't think I should be playing every week, then I don't think there's any point carrying on. And I've still held that belief up until I think I should be starting today, as I did the 1st of August or whatever it was we started this season. So I think that sort of mental side of the game where you think you should be playing is very important. So it doesn't make Jim's life any easier. I might.
Well, not quite right, but obviously from your point of view, you've got vast experience, which obviously brings you to the stage where sooner or later you have to decide, do I give it another year? And it must be tempting, that. It must be tempting, surely.
Yeah, it's all about timing as well, though, really, with sort of taking over as academy manager as well. It's about putting the right amount of effort into what needs the most of my time, really, and that's certainly the academy at the moment. That needs a lot of my time. For me to be training with the first team and getting involved with the first team and maybe making, I think it's my 14th today if I play today, doing all that time and effort training to play 15 times a season isn't really, I don't think, the best use of my time.
So that's, in a way, that's actually quite sad, isn't it, from an insider's point of view? You know, from what you've done this season, you appear to be still doing a job, but obviously you'd rather play a more active role and be playing every week than not, and that's the decision that you've come to, is right, if I can't do that, then I'll throw my energies into, obviously, the academy manager, running the reserves, etc, which is a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, like you said, we could have probably gone on for another season playing and sort of doing a bit part and playing little bits of games here and there, but I think at the end of the day, if I've been used to playing every week, I think that's probably the best way to sort of sign out, and I've not played that much this season, and that's, as I say, that's probably one of the reasons why, for me to go out while I still think I should be playing, rather than me to drag it out next season when maybe most people think I shouldn't be playing. So I think it's probably the right time now.
I think that's a positive way of looking at it, and the fact that before fans start turning going, oh, he's past it, which they haven't as yet. So maybe that's a good time to do it.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, well,
you always get a few dissenting voices, but
yeah, I know,
no matter what age you are.
Yeah, I know, but I remember you coming on, starting in the game at Gateshead in the GMAC Cup in about 1996 or something like that, and when they announced it, there was massive groans at the Gateshead Stadium from the 300 Morecambe faithful, and I remember that now.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, not Drummond.
It wasn't easy coming through the beginning.
No.
When Grimmy was there, Grimmy was sort of coming to the end of his time, and I was replacing him quite a bit at Christie Park, and the reaction from a few members of our faithful back then wasn't particularly positive. So each player has that, I suppose, when sort of taking over, and it's just one of those things you've got to try and get through. So going back to the early days, and obviously the garish red and white striped kit that we had at the time, when we were sort of like burgeoning seasons in the higher echelons of the Unibond and then obviously the conference, that's when you were part of the club. Like when we were watching then, in front of crowds of 250, 300, if we got 500 it was a bonus, you know. So it's strange really, because I'm going to make the analogy that your career at Morecambe as a club has gone exactly the same way, hasn't it? Because you went on to pastures new off to Chester, because obviously you were seeking league football, and then went on and had 2 fantastic seasons at Shrewsbury, still very well thought of at both clubs.
But then obviously you came back, but you didn't have to drop down because you actually came back to us in League Two because we'd actually followed you up there. And obviously I met the point because obviously at the time Dave Perkins left the season that we got promoted. And obviously since we got promoted, other people who've come through the youth system like Gary Thompson and Danny Carter have gone on to higher things as well. So there was Jim Harvey had a bit of a production line going there, didn't he?
Yeah, I think what Jim did for the club, I think, has been a little bit undervalued, to be honest, and not so much from the fans, but certainly from the youth perspective of the players that you brought through. You've mentioned a few of them there, and I think it sort of signifies the end when I'm playing now. I think I'm probably the last of the sort of the youth setup that he brought through, and looking at the team now, it's full of scouts as it always is, but there's not many young kids within the team or within the squad now that come through our setup, and that's really one of the things that sort of drives me on now.
Well, that's exactly where I was coming to now, in the fact that it was, your role now is sort of building on hopefully something that's going to be as successful as Jim created, because it was Jim who implemented all those plans early in '94, and obviously, there's Jeff Udall and there's lots of people around there who are still associated with the club. And it was a particularly happy time, wasn't it? Because we were getting players through, and even players like John Hardiker and Young Hodgson and people like that. They made quite a few appearances in the conference and had good careers even in non-league, which obviously, looking at that is a good thing to do, because we turned out good footballers, and that's something that you're hoping to carry on.
It is. I've said in a few interviews this week that I think that was our best time that I've been within the club. Sort of 2000 up to 2003 before I left, I think that was probably our best team. I know we've had some good individuals since then, but the way Jim Harvey was getting us playing football, and the young kids, so the young side that we had at the time, I was a little bit obviously disappointed not to get promoted a little bit earlier and have done it with Morecambe. But looking back the way we played and the lads that we had coming through, I think that should have been a more prosperous time for the club than it actually turned out to be.
And obviously from your point of view, you'd like to see it being that sort of natural progression from juniors to youth to reserves to first team. That's your job, hopefully now, to try and implement that strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it should make Jim's life easier if he doesn't have to go out and sign 5-6 players every year. I know players' loyalty, or not so much loyalty or club loyalty, I know it works both ways, but players tend to stay for 1 or 2 seasons nowadays. If we can get sort of not so much a nucleus, but 2, 3, 4 kids that have come through the setup that stay with us for 5, 6, 7 years, even if we have to sell them on, then that's great. The club gets something or they move on.
Yeah.
But to start building things around the youth setup should make the first team job a little bit easier and maybe even save them some money.
Because I always used to think of us as basically the non-league crew, because we had that many players who went on to different things, that yourself included. But so good luck with the new role. Yeah. Obviously, one door closes, another one opens, which is positive for you. Looking back at your time, you touched on there, which was my next question, which was what was your happiest time at the club? And you were saying probably 2000 to 2003, so you're talking sort of Dave McKinney and late days of Brian Ely, that sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, maybe even touch later, sort of the season when we came third, and Elam was playing, Shelley Rigoli also, where we got beat off Dagenham penalties then. So I think we had a really good team back then, and as I say, the type of football we were playing, we actually passed the people in the same shirt and things like that, so radical thoughts.
Well, Tom Hall on one side, Liam on the other, it was, and funnily enough, bizarrely, that sort of carried on. Sammy carried that on, and at Wembley we had Michael Twiss on the left and Tom on the right with Danny Carter and Wayne Curtis up front. So it was something that's carried on, but obviously establishing us in the Football League, our style has had to be a little bit more, shall we say, pragmatic, hasn't it?
One way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know football changes, and I understand it's going to be harder to get the young kids coming through. It is easier to get sort of the youth within a conference team than it will be into League Two, because the standard's that much higher. Yeah. As you say, it's a more physical league than the conferences. But there's no reason if we put enough time, enough effort into it, and we sort of convince Jim that the lads are ready to play, then I can't see any reason why we can't get 2 or 3 in there. Just
your thoughts now on something that that has become apparent in the past 2 weeks, with all loads of managers getting booted out and etc. etc. Do you put down, obviously, you've spent sort of 17 of your seasons professionally playing, semi-professionally or professionally playing for Morecambe. Do you put the success for yourself down and the success for the club that's gone hand in hand down to the fact that there's been consistency and the fact that we've had Jim Harvey, Sammy and now Jim in the last 20 years? And that is an amazing stat, isn't it, when you think Tranmere have had 3 managers this season, and perhaps that's why they're in the state they're in and where
exactly. Stability, that's what you need. The team that I was involved in at Chester when I first signed for them, when they got promoted, that was probably on paper the best team that I've been involved in, but yet we struggled that season because we had about 4 managers in that season. So unless you get things right off the pitch, doesn't matter what team you have on the pitch, then you're going to struggle, or you certainly won't reach the potential that the team deserves to.
So I'll put you on the spot here. You've played under the 3 managers. You know what I'm going to say, but bizarrely, I came out, we were talking about this in the car last week, and I came out as definitely a Harvey man, because we wouldn't be where we are without Jim, and I'm presuming you'll answer the same, or am I going to be denied here? So.
Yeah, I think so, because he brought me through as well, and he sort of had the trust, not just for me, but with Paul Maguire, John Hardiker, Leon Smith. There was loads that were coming through at the time, and he had the sort of trust that he put in the young boys at the time to throw them in and sort of see how they could do, and that's without trying to give Jim too much stick. But what we're trying to do now with Jim is for him to have trust in the young boys that we bring on. Yeah, we can sign kids on at 18, but then it's into Jim's hands to think, well, can he trust them to play in his first team? And that's probably the next hurdle that we need to try and get across. Yeah,
which obviously I think we've been missing a little bit of that, to be honest, in the fact that obviously Aaron McGowan's played quite a few games this season and done very, very well, but he's probably the only one, and obviously Nathan Bonswell's made the bench a few times but yet to appear. And I think maybe Jim thinks he's got his finger burnt in the past with a couple of players that he's brought on who've not quite made the step up and done it for more than 20 minutes in the 6 games they've played. But obviously that's
yeah, but I think the way to look at it is the sort of players that he's given a chance. If you talk about the likes of Joe McGee and people, and they were here for 3 years, and they were here for 3 years and played maybe 5-6 games. Yeah. So you could probably find out within your first year if they're going to be good enough if you played in 5-6 games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would agree with that. But obviously that's your job to try and persuade to do exactly. That. So going back to the early days, obviously you being from Preston, obviously you moved here 1,000 years ago now.
Yeah, many years ago.
So your home is here, and obviously the Morecambe Shrimp is, well, the old badge is probably tatted on your heart. The Morecambe Shrimp's not like it's quite near in it, but so it must be gratifying for you, because obviously you're now going to be involved with the club, maybe not on the pitch, but obviously behind the scenes and hopefully being successful, because you're part of the fabric of the club. And like I say, I'm not going to use the word legend because it's bandied about too much, but you're well known by and well liked by all of the supporters. So it must be gratifying for you now in a situation where you get to continue and put something back.
I think that's where the club's, like I mentioned before, where the club with a bit of stability. I think that's what it's done better than most, if not all, clubs in our sort of league, where you certainly stick by the first team managers, and if they can get back to the Liverpool ethos of the 70s, 80s, where the backroom staff have played at the club, they know the club inside out, they're not going to stretch the club to do things that they know it can't necessarily afford financially or isn't able to do. So yeah, to have staff members within the club who certainly know it and have been there and understand how it works, I think can only help going forward.
So going out, I want to talk about some of the goals.
It's been a while since I scored that.
Well, yeah, it has, but he scored a belter at Dagenham last season. Remember that one?
That wasn't last season, I think it was the season before, wasn't it?
No, was it season before?
Yeah, when Ryan Williams scored as well.
Yeah, that was cracking goal. Was that your last one?
I was trying to work it out.
Probably was, wasn't it, to be honest? It seems like only yesterday. Yeah. But going back to, I know you had some tremendous performances. I remember a goal that, was it Woking when we won 6-0?
The home game?
Yeah.
Well, the home game was when we won 5-0 and I scored a hat-trick. Yeah. I scored 3 that day.
I knew you'd remember that one.
Yeah, I remember all the good ones. Yeah, there's been some good ones. Stevenage away.
Oh, that was a pearler. Yeah, that was a pearler. I was there. We never beat Stevenage, but that was worth going for that.
No, but even the Bournemouth game, I think, where we won 5-0, I think 4 of the goals that day were pretty special, weren't they?
Yeah, they were actually, because Stannis scored.
Oh, yeah. Lawrence Wilson got a good one.
He must have sliced it, I think, Stannis.
It wasn't a header anyway, not that much.
No. But yeah, so go on. What's your favourite game from all the years that you've played? And don't say Chester or Shrewsbury.
Oh yeah. I think it would probably go back to not even the FA Cup game. It's probably a rather random one, but I think it signified where we were at as a club. We played Rushden Diamonds at home. I think we beat them 3-1 or 2-0, 3-1 or 2-0. And we put a really, really young team out, and obviously they were flying at the time. Rushden Diamonds, they had all the money. And we passed them off the park that day. I can still remember the games, probably about 2001-2, and that sort of sticks in my mind as a highlight of where we were at the time and where I thought we were heading as a club. And obviously didn't quite pan out as quickly or as certainly the way that Jim Harvey probably hoped it had panned out. No. But no, that was certainly a game that I can still remember playing.
Good memories. Yeah. I've got many memories of Rushden Diamonds. Like I say, the big fish of the time. But
yeah, even down there, place when we beat them 2-0. Yeah. The season came third. I think we 17 unbeaten towards the end of the season, weren't we?
That's right. Yeah.
That was another great game, and Brian Talbot was on the sidelines, weren't particularly happy.
He came back and signed Jacko after that.
Yeah.
And Jacko always said he should have signed Johnny Norman as well, but there you go. So, it's going to be an emotional day for you today. At the final whistle, what do you think your thoughts are going to be?
I don't think today there'll be all that many emotional thoughts. I think you probably start looking back, as you guys do. Obviously retired many years ago from any sort of football activities. But yeah, within the sort of weeks and months to come, when you
still play 5-a-side on Thursday. You can come.
Really?
Yes, I think not to run.
So I think if you look back in time to come, I think today, yeah, you sort of enjoy the game. It's in a moment, it's just like any other day, any other match day. Certainly this season, sitting on the bench. So it's like any other match day this season. But when you come to the end of it, and probably tomorrow and then sort of the weeks to come, you start looking how many goals you scored, how many games you played, and all the sort of paraphernalia that goes around with it.
Well, you should look back and be very proud of yourself and what you've achieved, because you've carved out. If you thought well of it at 3 clubs, that's pretty unusual, isn't it? To be truthful.
Yeah, well, I wasn't particularly well thought of when I got Player of the Year at Chester and was signed for Shrewsbury. Was informed it probably wise if I didn't come to the last home game to pick my trophies up. So I think time's a great healer, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably is, but obviously we know he was in charge then, so we can probably forgive you that one. As he gives a glance to the camera. Hope he's not watching. Yeah, but from that point of view, you know, you should be proud of yourself, because obviously you've made yourself carved out a very, very good career. Certainly been one of the best players that's ever pulled on a Morecambe shirt, whether it be in the conference or the Football League. And I know when Quinny's doing a thing next year with Morecambe's, you put your best 11 in anyway, and he's asked me to do it, and you're in mine. So.
I've got 1 vote then.
So, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you'll be unsurprised to learn you're alongside Brian Healy, because I think that was probably our finest. That was probably our finest midfield. Him and you as our two midfielders. That's why we were brilliant those 2 or 3 years. It was a shame when Brian went to Torquay, but he had to go and he's got to go, and obviously you weren't far behind him in going. But from that point of view, you had a fantastic career. You've been a great servant to the club. It was a bargain when we got you back, because we thought when we got you back, we thought, we'll probably get a couple of years out of Drummy, and that was what, 2008.
Yeah, 2008 came out. Yes, I've dragged it out a little bit, haven't I?
You have. You've made it last as long as you possibly
rolling contracts, haven't I? 1-year contracts.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether he had pictures of Jim doing something that he shouldn't have, to be honest. But obviously your performances on the pitch have shown that you deserve your place, and it is. You should be happy about making the decision that you've done today, because like I said, you've taken that decision, and I think that's a positive thing from your point of view. But we're sad to see you go. But enjoy the day. And we might have a catch up with you next season to see how things are coming on. You can tip us who the next youth are, so we can let the world know, and then people can sign them for millions.
Well, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Get some money flowing through.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So, Stuart, congratulations. Thanks for all you've done for Morecambe Football Club. Carry on doing it. Score today, please.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Fish out. Cheers, Dave. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, kid.